Hi, everybody. Welcome to Surviving to Thriving, Self-Care for the Modern Woman. Thank you so much for joining us for this exclusive webinar event. You're in for a treat. This is the very first webinar presented to you by POKA, the only reproductive health app developed with and for Black women. Before I hand you over to our medical specialist, Elise, who will talk to us about the importance of self-care and mental health, I would like to engage you in a short icebreaker question. On a scale of 1 to 10, tell me, how excited are you for this webinar? Waiting for all of you guys to answer. Ooh, okay. I've got all your responses. Let me see.
Everybody's excited.
So most people are excited for this webinar. That's great. Now for the next question. Which period tracker app do you currently use? Please let me know. Okay, so we have 71% use the Flow app. So that's a popular one. We have 14% using the My Period calendar. And then, we have one that says Jesus is their tracker. I love that. All right, so that's enough from me. Let's get started. Elise, do you want to take it away?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining our presentation on Surviving to Thriving, Self-Care for the Modern Woman. I had somebody in my DMs asking, what's about the non-modern woman? Well, I'm hoping that we're all modern women as we are in the modern age. In today's presentation, we'll just talk a little bit about our everyday mental health stories. That's how we'll introduce the presentation. Then we'll talk about the causes of mental health issues in women, talk about anxiety, depression, and PTSD because they're the most common mental health issues. And we'll talk about managing our mental health issues. We'll talk about self-care, and then give a few mental health resources, share those with you, and then we'll conclude and ask for questions. Okay, so we'll have Nanajwa read these out for us.
Okay, thanks, Elise. Okay, I'm just gonna jump right into it. Osua. Osua is a mother of 2 children, both under 6. She works a full-time corporate job. She has a somewhat supportive husband, Kojo, who helps with the kids and the chores when he can. Osua has come under intense pressure at work lately. There's so much to be done. It's also Premier League season, meaning that Kojo is often out with the boys and can't help out as often. She is usually tired and cranky, and her periods have recently been out of sync, keeping her anxious all the time. Her skin has become flaky, and she's breaking out, despite her stellar skincare routine. Her son was admitted to the hospital for a week, and she had to stay with him, shuttling between the hospital and work, even though she had asked for a few days off. The work had to be done. Her project finally went through, and when she thought she could finally breathe a sigh of relief, she had to deal with the death of a close aunt. Osua feels like she can't catch a break.
Mm-hmm.
Na noticed a few years ago that her moods and emotions fluctuated during different times of her menstrual cycle. In the first half of her period, she felt happy and energized, but approaching the second half, she was often sad and drained, sometimes unable to do anything. She didn't understand why and thought that she was being overly sensitive. She tried to ignore the mood swings, but they affected her work and personal life. She was canceling plans, calling in sick to work, and isolating herself from her friends and family. Now decided to seek help. Her doctor diagnosed her with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, prescribed medication to regulate her moods, and recommended therapy to help her cope with the changes she was experiencing. She didn't want any of her friends to know about this. Her mother attributed therapy and her medications to why she has not found a husband. She has asked her to stop them and join her at a prayer retreat instead. The Lord will do it. Lamisi. Lamisi recently had her second daughter. Everyone was ecstatic, but she couldn't shake off the sadness and emptiness that had taken over her. She had a similar feeling after her first child, but this time it was much worse. She struggled to get out of bed, to eat, or to have normal conversations. Breastfeeding was a chore. She felt like a failure as a mother unable to bond with her baby, constantly crying when nobody was watching, and feeling overwhelmed with guilt and sadness. Her mother and husband did not understand the sudden change that had come over her, and she did her best to pretend that everything was fine. She's also been trying to lose weight and is dealing with questions from her friends and family about when the next baby, a son, would arrive. Some days her world was so dark she couldn't breathe. When she finally opened up to her mother, she was reprimanded vehemently and told to stop moping and toughen up.
Okay, thank you, Nanatra. So these are the stories of 3 women. I'm hoping that these are relatable. Is there anybody on this chat that feels like any of these are relatable or has experienced anything similar or would like to share something concerning these scenarios? Anybody that has ever been in Owusu, Ona, or Lamisi's shoes in the past, or has even seen a friend or seen someone go through something similar?
Yeah, I think for me, definitely Na and Lamisi's story. They both resonate with me. I had a baby about a year ago now, and I definitely experienced what I think was some level of postpartum depression or just not feeling like myself, especially those initial couple of months where, as a first-time mom, it's a shock to your system, both mentally and physically. And I think I definitely suffered a little bit with kind of, mood changes and some sort of mood disorder. So yeah, let me see story definitely resonates with me there.
Great, thank you for sharing. So it's clear that some of these things are relatable. Many of them are, but we don't talk about them a lot. So let's talk about our mental health. First of all, the definition is that our mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And it is very important for women because of the following reasons. We are more likely to be depressed than men, and depression is one of the highest causes of is the highest cause of suicide, which is also the 4th leading cause of death in 15 to 29-year-olds. And over 10% of pregnant women and women who have just given birth will experience depression. And this is the reported number. You know how Lamisi talked about it and was reprimanded and did not seek any help. That means that there are so many people going through it that don't talk about it, don't report it. So this is just the reported number of people. And then there are known effective treatments for mental disorders, but because we live in a middle income country, we don't receive treatment because there's stigma, there's not many healthcare providers for it. We're not very aware. A lot of people don't know about it. And our institutions don't invest a lot in mental health care. So then we don't have enough research, we don't have enough funding. So these things, while there are solutions, our system doesn't necessarily have these solutions. Okay, so we'll talk about the causes of mental health issues in women. We have biological causes, environmental causes, and sociocultural causes. So let's start with the biological causes. Genetics. You know how, I don't know if I should say in the past, because I think people still do it. When someone is going to get married, they say, oh, let's go and find out if they have any mad people in their family. So genetics and family history definitely have a part to play in mental health issues. So autism, ADHD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, they tend to run in families. So then there's some genetic component, and then there are also environmental components that will push people into these conditions. And then let's talk about menstrual issues, because we all have menstrual issues. We all have some, at least as a woman, you will have a period where you'll have menarche, you'll have your period, and then you reach a point of menopause. So these are things that affect us on the day-to-day. Let's talk about premenstrual syndrome. So premenstrual syndrome is a mild form of mood swings. You know, our menstrual cycle has different fluctuations, hormones coming here and there. This happens for 14 days. We have the follicular phase. We know we have the ovulation. Then we have our luteal phase. So then premenstrual syndrome is a mild form of discomfort. So we have physical discomfort, dysmenorrhea, breast tenderness, and that's most women experience this, at least to a large extent. So it can lead to a lot of psychological distress and things like that. But premenstrual dysphoric disorder is on a different level. It's a higher, it's a worse form of premenstrual syndrome. Some people during their periods or just before have terrible mood swings that makes them unable to function at work, unable to do their day-to-day activities, unable to care for their families as they otherwise would. And because we all know about premenstrual syndrome, it's people think that you're exaggerating when you talk about the symptoms of premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So not many women seek help for premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and affects 5 to 10 women in their reproductive years. So it's not a small number out there. So people will have relationship issues and think that, oh, this was just premenstrual syndrome, but it's something that could be taken care of with if they seek help, if they knew to seek help, knew to get medication, knew to get therapy to help with their mood swings. And then we'll talk about perimenopausal depression. As our menses are regulated by different hormones. As a woman reaches menopause, these hormones start to reduce and things start to go out of whack, basically. So they tend to be prone to depression. And it's just something that you're used to for years, and then all of a sudden it starts to change. Your body starts to change, your hormones start to change. So it's a lot to deal with. People experience hot flushes, all of the symptoms of menopause, and these can all lead to the depressive symptoms. And apart from these, research has shown that depression and other mental health issues, so anxiety, can be triggered or worsened depending on what phase of a woman's menstrual cycle she's in. And then we'll talk also about postpartum depression. As we mentioned in Lamisi's story, postpartum depression affects quite a number of women, said 10% of reported cases. So people have children and they feel blue, they feel they can't bond with their babies. And in our society, it's just suck it up and move on. Why are you acting like you're not the first to have a baby? This is not this is not normal. This is not something that you should they have a way of saying, don't, if you sit with it, then it'll get worse. You have to get up and shake it off. So women tend to feel terrible, even worse for showing any symptoms of postpartum depression, but it's very real and it's something that we need to talk about. Infections can also cause mental health issues, but they're not very common. So influenza virus, herpes viruses, they can cause mental health issues, depression, anxiety in women, but they're not common. Okay. So the environmental causes of mental health issues in women, these are the things that we can do something about for the most part. The stressful, to a large extent, we can regulate. So there are stressful events, you lose a loved one, you're divorced, you're unemployed. These ones you can't do much about. But sleep deprivation, that's something that you can do about it. Drug or substance abuse is something that you can do about it. If you have realized when you are sleep deprived, you are very cranky. I am saying this from experience because I've been very sleep deprived, but it's something that you don't realize when it's happening that you're cranky or you're snapping at everybody, but later you realize maybe it's because I haven't had a good night's sleep, or I haven't taken a nap or something like that. And then drugs or substance abuse, alcohol and cigarettes are definitely part. When we talk about drugs and substance abuse, people assume we're talking about marijuana, cocaine, all the other drugs and things. But alcohol and cigarette abuse can also cause a lot of mental health issues in women. And then there's physical and/or sexual abuse. One thing is people tend to only assume that abuse is being hit or being raped, but there's verbal abuse that can definitely play a part in mental health issues. All the gaslighting, all the things that people go through in relationships, intimate partner violence, they all have a part to play in mental health issues in women. And then extreme weather conditions. In Ghana, I won't say this is very common because it's always hot. So, but heat waves and extreme winters in other places can lead to seasonal depressions, and people tend to have more cases of depression during their winters. And then finally, we talk about hostile and hazardous work environments. There's some people that work in places where they know they should probably quit, but we you can't just quit. It's hard. Like you need a job, you need money, you need to provide for the family. It's difficult, but there are work environments that tamper with our mental health, that make us rethink our self-esteem, make us rethink our whole lives. And those can worsen our mental health. Some people also work in labs and places, factories, where they get into contact with toxic fumes and substances, and these can also end up in the long run causing mental health issues. And then we finally talk about the social cultural causes of mental health issues in women. Especially in Ghana, we have these social norms that are very interesting and affect. I mean, most of it is worldwide, but Ghana, we make a big deal about it. So our societal expectations, or generally in Africa, our societal expectations, people expect that you've had 2 girls. Why are you having another girl? When is the boy coming? You've had a baby. When are you snapping back to your what do we call it? To your yummy mommy, so that you get back to your usual size. The standards of beauty, being big or being thin or being short or being tall. These are things that people talk about as if they don't realize that a lot of people think about these things and it affects their mental health, but societal norms really affect our mental health. Then there's economic crisis, poverty, debt, unemployment. These are all things that, I mean, there are people that say that money cannot buy happiness, but with money, you know that you can afford therapy. With money, you can fly somewhere to go and be sad, all of that. So poverty is definitely a big issue when it comes to mental health issues in women, debt and unemployment as well. And then an important thing to talk about is the stigma that's associated with seeking help. I've had so many people say that they're afraid to go to therapy because someone will think that they have madness running in their family, which makes no sense. If the resources are there available and you know that you can get it, why is our society pushing this stigma so much that we're not able to seek that help? Okay, so we'll talk about anxiety, depression, and PTSD. These are the commonest causes of mental health issues, the commonest mental health issues in women. So depression is a medical disorder that is characterized by sadness, loss of interest and pleasure in things that you used to like, things that were enjoyable to you in the past. And it significantly impairs your daily life. So for some people, it is that they cannot take a shower. That's how it impacts their daily life. So they are smelling all the time. They're not paying attention to their personal hygiene. Or for some people, they are just not able to carry any meaningful human interaction. So they tend to isolate themselves from people. They tend to keep away from anybody, even people that they live with. So they'll just lock themselves up at home and then that's it. So it manifests differently in different people, but there's a set, it has to be persistent and over, I think, a period of 6 weeks and impairs your daily life. And there's anxiety, where people have excessive feelings of worry and intrusive thoughts. So some people, they have certain fears, things that will probably never happen, things that the general public probably doesn't think about, but it's a constant fear inside their heads that this is going to happen or something. So for some people, it could be about an exam. For some people, it could be about being hit by a car. Maybe because they've in the past experienced some trauma, which will tie us into post-traumatic stress disorder concerning car accidents. For some people, it could just be a fear of water. Everybody has like a different these phobias and anxieties. And then post-traumatic stress disorder, where people experience shocking, scary, or dangerous they experience a shocking, scary, or dangerous event, and then after that, they start to experience flashbacks and things. So for some people, it may be a short term thing, but it may progress to chronic PTSD. When I was in school, my class had a trip and we were in an accident. And it was a VIP bus that tumbled down and it was somewhere in the mountains. So my fear during that accident was that after the whole accident, we all seemed fine, but my fear was that we would get out of the bus and just the fact that we were trying to move out of the bus would tip the bus over and then we would start tumbling. So after that, for a very long time, I could not take VIPs. Like I would look at the bus and then remember that and then start to feel the way I felt on that day. But I did not have money for flights. So then by the grace of God, it was not chronic PTSD. So I had to figure it out and get into VIP to go to and from school. But yeah, that's how it manifests in some people. For some people, it will be impossible for them to get back in a bus after a situation like that. So it differs from person to person. And then there are other mental health issues that women face, eating disorders, which is something that will tie into societal norms because of our standards of beauty and what we consider beauty to be. So it could be anorexia nervosa, where people do not eat, it's an eating disorder where they try to not eat. It gets so bad that they're so thin and they don't realize that this is what they currently look like. Then there's bulimia. So these are not as common as depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so now we talk about the good things, managing our mental health issues. So our mental health is definitely intertwined with our physical health. So it's important that your physical health is stellar so that you can have stellar mental health as well. So one important thing is self-care, taking care of your physical, emotional, and mental health. And when we say taking care of yourself, we don't just talk about going to the gym or going to Pilates or whatever. Emotional and mental health is also important. Sitting down and understanding things that go on in your mind, understanding your fears, understanding your thought processes, not downplaying any of those is also really important. So routine checkups are important, both for physical and mental health. Then there's self-awareness, knowing that this was not on my body a week ago. Why is it here right now? And what can I do about it? Or I was not feeling this way before I had my baby. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling worthless? So it's important that we are self-aware about certain things. Also, knowing when to put our foot down. A lot of us don't know how to say no. So a friend says, let's do this, or can you help me with this? And you say yes. And then can you do this? You say yes. So it becomes you have too much on your plate just because you don't know when to say no, when to put your foot down. And then talking about downplaying things, don't downplay anything that you notice, you find out about, you seek help. Another important thing is to live in community. We are not meant for isolation. We are built for community. So it's important that we live in community. Let your partner know, let your loved ones know. Some people sit with depression, sit with anxiety for many years, don't let their loved ones know, and then they commit suicide, and everyone is like, we didn't know that they were struggling with depression, or we didn't know that they seemed so happy. It's important to let your loved ones know because sometimes they can actually help. We are slowly moving away from the days of stigma with mental health issues, and sharing your problem with a trusted loved one is something that can improve your odds of making it. And seek help. It's important that we seek help. And like I said, we are built for community. Many mental health issues thrive in isolation. So, and it can lead to self-harm. It can lead to suicide because nobody knows about it. So before you know it, it's all you're gone, or you're hurting yourself or something like that.
Elise, before you continue, I want to jump in with another poll for our attendees.
Sounds good.
So is everybody ready? I'm launching this next poll, and Elise, you might have to hop in with the results, but here we go. So this one is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is it that you have access to health and wellness information that is tailored to your cultural background? So 1 is not important at all. 2 is somewhat important. 3 is neutral, doesn't matter really. 4, somewhat important. And 5, very important. So waiting for everybody to answer. Oh, I think everybody has answered. Great. And it's showing here that 92% of you think it's very important that, you know, you have access to health and wellness information that is tailored to your cultural background. So yeah, this is where the POKA app comes in. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Okay. So, all right. Okay, so back at it. So we'll talk about self-care. Self-care is basically doing something that helps your body, helps your mind, helps your soul get healthy and feel good, something that makes you happy, something that makes you feel, oh, I'm not as emotionally or mentally burdened as I was yesterday because I did this. And it helps promote overall well-being, but it also helps prevent and manage depression, anxiety, and PTSD, which we said are our most common mental health disorders in women. And it's important to know that it looks different for every woman. So for me, it could be getting on a flight somewhere or taking a good nap. For someone, it could be yoga. It's completely different. What's important is that you intentionally schedule time for your self-care. So the fact that you're not losing sight of what makes you feel cared for, and you're doing them for yourself. So, like I said, it could be praying for someone. It could be hanging out with friends for someone. It could be taking a bath. It could be getting on the phone with a friend and talking to them. It could be just sitting. It differs for different people. So as long as you know this is something that makes me feel emotionally and mentally taken care of, if it works for you, schedule it into your life. If it's hard initially, you can decide that you will do it maybe once a month, or it is something that you can do daily, or it differs for every person. So if it's an expensive thing, you can plan towards it. Maybe every 2 months I'm going to get a massage because that's when I can afford to do it, or every 6 months or something. Not keeping it far apart is best, but as much as you can afford, as much as you can do, take care of yourself, put in your whatever it is that makes you feel cared for. So could be yoga, journaling, working out. It differs for every woman. So now is when I will talk about our app. So as we're talking about these self-care things, we know that POKA, like we've already mentioned before, POKA is the only reproductive health app created with and for Black women. So it allows you to track your period, your symptoms, follow your conception and your pregnancy journey, and also access self-care and women's wellness resources. So if there are therapy, resources for therapy, you can find over there. If there are plugs for yoga, you can find them there, whatever it is. It helps also to manage perimenopause and menopause, which is something we don't talk about, but we're all heading there in the long run. It also helps you to purchase sustainable period products and so much more. So it's something that we're hoping that you're looking forward to. So, and here are a few mental health resources. These are just a few places in Accra and Kumasi. I'm still working on getting a list of places outside of Accra and Kumasi, because I know that those are not the only two places where our women are from. So, but this is something we can share with you after the webinar in your email, so that you have this list of mental health resources, psychotherapy, clinical psychologists, anything that if any of them interests you, these are things, people you can email or call to talk to. So now that we're getting to the end of our talk, remember we talked about these three women. Based on all the things that we've talked about, are there things that you think they could have done to make a difference in their situations? Are there things that would have made a difference or improved their lives? Can I call randomly from any of the people any of the participants? Is there anybody? Mohammed Donko, would you like to give us your thoughts on this?
Remember to unmute yourself so that we can all hear you.
Okay, so I think from what you said, I think actually all of them will benefit from speaking to a professional, either a clinical psychologist, or I don't know, like a psychiatrist about some of the issues that they're facing.
So thank you. Anybody else? I think that Owusua will probably benefit from a break. I mean, I understand that there's a lot that's going on, but if she could somehow manage to fit in a break, apart from seeking help, that could make a world of difference for her. Anybody else that could share something?
Yeah. I'm thinking about Lamisi's problem, and especially that of societal pressure. And what I think is that women don't do enough to push back against some of these pressures or speak their mind. I think we're very passive, especially in our part of the world sometimes, in sort of accepting all the expectations that are placed on us. So I think it's important that as part of self-care, that women stand up for themselves and push back against some of this societal pressure and say, actually, we're not going to have a next child. Actually, it's okay if we don't have a boy. You know what I mean? Just so people understand what that sort of thing they can say to you, and also the sort of things they can't say to you. I think that's really important.
Totally agree with you on that. People will stop asking you if you give them one semi-rude answer or two. So I completely agree with you. Anybody else? Just one more person, and then we'll Adele's. Hello. To add to Adele's statement, we tend to think about a lot about what people think. It's best to know what you want, what you are in for, what you know you are best at, so that whatever anybody says is just a secondary matter. You are the primary person and you know what you want, you know what you are going for. So what everybody thinks, yes, listen, but you can take the good and leave the bad and stop burdening ourselves with what is not necessary. I agree. Love that. Thank you. So yes, these are situations that we will probably not stop being in. I mean, your period is not going to stop. So chances are your premenstrual syndrome is not going to go away. If you have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, it's probably not going to go away without help. Your postpartum depression is probably not going to go away without help. So it's important to get ways to manage it. Your job is constantly, or not constantly, but to a large extent, going to be full of stress because combining that with a family is always hard. But there are ways to ease the pressure, to make it better. So we need to invest in things that will improve our lives in that way, reduce the stress, reduce the pressure that we're experiencing. And like they said, it's important to not think about the things that people are constantly saying. Think what's important is what you want, what you need. Okay, so as we've already talked about this, Adele will launch a quick poll, I believe. And then if anybody, in the meantime, if anybody has questions, if anybody would like to share any similar personal experiences, we are here for that.
So while you think about, a personal experience that you might want to share or any questions, I'm going to launch this final poll. And this one's asking you if you've learned anything new about self-care strategies for women so far. Wow, people are quick to answer this one, I can see. Wow. Yes, and it's a resounding yes, I think. Feel free to be honest, we have tough skin. Yeah, it looks like everybody feels like this session was quite useful. So thank you so much, Elise.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you, ladies. It has been a pleasure sharing all of this with you. Doing all of this research also gave me information that I did not have before. So this has been great. And thank you. I would like to introduce you to our POKA team. And we wish this was us, but you know. So, okay, everybody come off, show your cameras and just a wave. So we have Nanajwa and Jesse, who are the co-founders. And then we have Rosalind, who is our technical lead. And then we have Adele, that all of you have heard from already, who is our creative strategist. And then there's me, medical consultant. So we are excited to bring you the POKA app, and please stay tuned. Expect more from us as time goes on.
And Elise, if you can go back to the slide before this one, I want to plug our socials.
Sure.
So if you have Instagram, if you have a LinkedIn, this is where you can find us after this call. Please go and follow us. And yeah, we'll share updates with you as we continue to build the app. So.
All righty. Okay, so if there are no questions or anything that people would like to share, I think I will hand over to Adele or to
I
Jess.
have an experience to share.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I have 2 children. I'm a full-time professional. I'm a lawyer. Yes, and I don't have help at home. I used to get angry at any and everybody, from my children to everybody. Then I decided that, okay, on Fridays, I'll just stay a bit longer at home, at work, and let my husband pick the children from school and take them home. And I've been doing that for a while now, and it feels glorious. One day, one day out of the whole week, to have just maybe about 2 to 3 hours after work on my own, not necessarily doing anything, just sitting down and looking at the ceiling and thinking about myself. It's been good, and I realize it's taking a lot of stress off me. I'm no longer as angry as I used to be, and I think I'm able to work better than I used to. And that is really great for me. That's something, is like a safe haven I've found, and I'm really loving it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. That's great.
Yeah, that was really great. So I think one thing we might want to add to our slide is self-care is doing nothing. Self-care is literally staring at the ceiling. You know what I mean? If that's what you need.
Works for you, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good example. Thank you.
So, Elise, I actually meant to ask you earlier on with I don't remember which one this was. I think this was Osia. Does self-care in this situation also count as just not letting her husband leave the house? Premier League or not, we have children. Stay home
Honestly, I
and let's take care of
agree.
our children.
I mean-
Self-care is terrorizing your husband.
I think in this situation it could be that. But you know, I believe in different seasons. So there could be a season where he is going to Premier League, and then there's a season where I am going to Bali on my own. So as long as we have that balance, I think that it's fine. But if we don't, then I agree, terrorizing him is important in this situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that would be it for today. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. Really, really grateful. And we hope that this has been helpful.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you at the next webinar.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Bye.